All right, it's 6:30, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first thing on the agenda here is Counselors Week. We have a declaration that I'll let Superintendent Riggs read.
Hope everyone can hear me. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. We last week celebrated Counselors Week and did a few things. So of course the schools are very good at celebrating all of the great things that are happening for our students every day. And one of those includes counselors and how vital they are to the well-being of not only our students, but to staff and to our entire community. We wanted to recognize them last week. And so in doing so, we sent out a press release about their value, what they do, what they offer. Many times people think that counselors only prepare us for our future, but really they're preparing us every day to ensure our mental health, our wellness, our ability to do our best and perform well while in school. So instead of a declaration, I wanted to just express that we honor and celebrate our school's counselors all year and every day for the many ways in which they use their professional support skills for students and staff members. The incredible support they're able to provide daily highlights the incredible work of these dedicated mental health professionals, and we are grateful for all they do for us, our students, staff members, and families. I know how hard our school counselors have worked to bring our district family together, work with our students as they plan for the future, and address the mental health issues our students and families are facing during this time. Their work profoundly impacts the lives of our students, not only when they are in schools, but for many years after they graduate. Students' unmet mental health needs can be significant obstacles for student academic, career, and social emotional development, and can even compromise school safety. School counselors enhance awareness of mental health, provide support for academic, career, and social emotional development, short-term counseling interventions, and referral to community resources for long-term assistance. Counselors advocate for the mental health needs of all students, and Sweet Home School District ensures there are counselors in all schools when staff is available. Counselors promote the development and implementation of a comprehensive school counseling program and are equipped with the essential skills, knowledge, and resource connections to remove barriers and promote access to high-quality education while supporting overall student success. National School Counselor Week is an annual celebration sponsored by the American School Counselor Association. Is set aside each year to focus public attention on the extensive contributions of school counselors within the U.S. school system. Counselors are actively engaged in helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents while working in partnerships with family. They focus on positive ways to enhance students' academic, career, and social emotional development, partnering with teachers to ensure students can realize their potential and set healthy and realistic goals for themselves. Again, I want to just wish all of the counselors, I hope they had the best counselor week of all, and know that we are celebrating them and very thankful for their services all year, especially those years that we've been in a pandemic where we hit those emotional, social, and cognitive needs that really our needs intensify during these times. So thank you for letting us offer our words of praise.
Where are we on staffing, council staffing for all of the schools?
We have counselors all but one filled. However, we have those with the smaller caseloads are able to cover specific days at Foster. And so we have the Oak Heights counselor that goes there. We have our behavior specialist that also supports there and some additional staffing. Right now, we're finding, like, generally when we talk about our positions, we are still trying to fill teaching positions, specifically special education is a difficult one to cover. Counselors, those specialized positions are very difficult. And then also classified, as you know, the number of classified is something that we so desperately need in our schools, and we still are not filling all of those positions.
I'm just wondering on that foster, since you mentioned foster position. I did 28 years of law enforcement, taught there at school, a lot of involvement in school. I know foster deals with the tougher part, and I mean, the kids that attend foster school are usually from the tougher parts of town, trailer parks, you know, north of Main Street. Kind of how we looked at it at the police department. No, not that way. Is there a way to put more time with some of the other counselors out there to get more? And then those kids, I've seen those kids grow up, and some of those kids grow up and tragic, and I think we should, if possible, give them some more one-on-one time, if possible.
Again, we can certainly look at the allocations of the size of the schools. One thing for sure I can tell you is we have more counselors per student than the typical schools in larger, because our schools have smaller sizes. So the fact that we have counselors in schools that may not have like 500 students, which we don't, and have multiple for the junior high and high school, that even typically allocate a 0.5 for the size of our schools. And so I feel very comfortable that we have a full, but I can continue to look at that. But again, we've been fortunate with our ESSER funds, and especially the recovery of the learning, that we will continue to try to find those. But again, I think the national recognition talks about that specificity, and we don't want just any person. We don't want just someone that is willing to do something that's not trained, and because these are specifically trained folks, and that's the part that's difficult to find. Yeah.
And I'm not saying
right.
I'm saying. Sorry,
No.
I'm saying take somebody from Okites or Hawthorne or high school and put them out there halftime, so those kids have that outlet, because I think that's important to those kids. You know, they are probably the majority of the ones that are already level. Attention, not to take away from the kids that offer them Okites or Ollie, but you know, spread out the time might be good for those kids.
And that's what we've been doing. We've been spreading those people so we can do some coverage for foster. So thank you for that thought.
All right. Next, we have the SB Awards. SB stands for Exceptional Student Performance this year. This award is given to students who are doing well academically and have an exceptionally positive attitude about school. They demonstrate respect and responsibility towards staff and their spirit and their peers. They show courage by not conforming to peer pressure and refuse to accept anyone who bullies. The school board and the district want to recognize these students by celebrating their success at the beginning of each board meeting. The students will receive a nice plaque, which will be delivered to them. And normally they get to come in here and shake hands or fist bump or whatever, but with COVID, we're restricted on that. So their names will get entered into a drawing for the end of the year where there will be a nice prize given out. It's been an iPad or something like that in the past. So congratulations to these students. I'll go ahead and read through the list here. From the high school, we have Colby Burns and Lily James. From the junior high school, we have Xavier Pennington and Caden Edie. And I apologize if I mispronounce some names. There's some tough ones in this month. So from Foster, we have Violet Wilson and Blake Bellin. From Hawthorne, we have Willow Hart and Nathan Ulrey. From Holly, we have Eloise Fahey. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And Gabby Chafino. From Oak Heights, we have Abigail Meek and Jackson Hudson. And from the charter school, we have Journey Minor and Brooklyn Cunningham. So congratulations to those kids. We appreciate you and keep up the good work. Next, we're up for agenda approval. I was kind of looking through this evening, and we don't have anything, any action scheduled coming out of the executive session. So we've got a student running the YouTube feed tonight and some of that stuff. My suggestion is maybe we move that to the end. That way we can close the meeting and then do the executive session, and we can get the student out of here earlier than, so they don't have to hang around and wait for that last section. So other than that, we don't have any late items or changes that we need to make.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as you suggested, that change there.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the agenda? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we will proceed. I have not received any public comments. Again, just with the mask restrictions and the COVID restrictions with space and all that stuff. At this time, we are taking those comments in written form. So email the district office or mail them in, or however you need to get them to us. We do see them, we do read them, and they do mean something to us. So if you have something you want to comment on, it will become a part of the public record, and we will make sure that we see all of that stuff as well. So next we have the student and personnel reports. Certified reps. I don't see Steve here. Is he online?
No, Steve, neither Steve nor Velma are online tonight.
Okay. And I also don't see Velma. Is she not online? Okay. Okay. I understand we're on Valentine's Day, and I hope they're spending time with their significant others there. I know my wife isn't happy with me right now, but I didn't see this coming, so I apologize. I might have forgotten, but don't tell her. Next, we have the superintendent's report. Superintendent Riggs, I'll turn it over to you.
I have a few things tonight, 9. Some are faster than others. You can take a look at. Again, thank you. There are about 9 things. We can go through some very quickly. Some are a little more lengthy. The first one you'll see is the updated enrollment. What we're seeing, and we're having some conversations, is regarding some of the new students that are coming to our area, which we are always warm and welcoming. And we also like to keep track of our numbers in those schools. And so we've had a few meetings to see how we can support staff and those numbers that are increasing. You can see in the numbers, they don't break down quite the way we look at them. We look at class to class, but when we see numbers in the 28s or so, we think, how could we add a classified or split into a certified, although we don't like to make changes like that for our students in the middle of the year. So adding some classified, if all possible, to add some support might be the way to go. The good news is that is something that we can roll up for next year and then plan for, knowing that, again, we try to avoid split classes, and we try to start with lower numbers than higher numbers, but they do grow in the year. We've seen some recovery from online learning. And then I think in this next month, as we are planning ahead for changes to the regulation, we may see some students wanting to come back. or we might see some that want to make changes to go online. So we'll keep you apprised to those changes. The second is the Music and Brewfest update. Last time we had a presentation and some questions around how we could utilize our spaces and support the economic and events that might be happening this spring. Kevin did reach out to Pace and to that legal side. So Kevin, do you want to speak to this, or do you want me to just quickly share? It's all good news.
In a nutshell, our Pace legal counsel, legal counsel recommended that we not have an event that includes alcohol on the district campus. We reached out to Robert with the Jamboree. He had already been planning in case that was the answer. What he told us is that he's been in communication with the owner of the parking lot next to the Rio Theater, and is last update he gave us, he's looking at holding the event there, but still would like to be able to use Sweet Home School District property for parking, perhaps camping. And that falls on a weekend when we are having conferences the Thursday and Friday going into that weekend. And so at this point, it looks like we could accommodate that.
So that doesn't change the typical contract that that has been in play in the past. And also it helps because we are not holding school, and that was nice that they had selected that weekend. And so I think they'll have plenty of space, which is great. So, and we can all go, maybe, I don't know. I will look, but it is, oh.
Yeah, it wasn't on Facebook, I'm sure.
Mhm. So next is our audit report with Kevin Strong, and Brad, I think, is online. Yes, great. And
Yes, I think Brad with Polly Rogers is here as well. I'll begin and just kind of hit the highlights of the audit report. And then Brad and I are both here to field any questions that you have. So this is item 6B3 in the board packet. I'll just kind of go down the bullet points. The first, the auditors issued a clean opinion with no reservations. Second, the district net position increased during the year. Third, our total outstanding debt decreased during the year. Fourth, we implemented some changes coming from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and those are reflected in our financial statements. Fifth, our district expenditures were within authorized appropriations in all areas except for special revenue instruction. When we built the budget, we assumed we would be using much of our special revenue funds on support services. Instead, we spent more on instruction and considerably less on support services. Next, the student activity funds audit report is also attached. There were no findings. The high school has a balance of $452,238. And the junior high has a balance of $49,523 at the end of the fiscal year. And included in their audit report, you can see the detail that makes up those balances. And then finally, the PERS unfunded liability does remain a concern for us based on the most recent valuation date. The system's unfunded actuarial liability statewide was at $28 billion, and Sweet Home's share of that was $13,525,880. So just something to kind of keep in mind. And the good thing, PERS had a good year on its investments in 2021. 2022 has started. If you're watching the market, it's been more down than up so far. So, but something just in the long term that we need to continue to watch. So with that, Brad is here too by Zoom, and please let Brad or me know if you have any questions.
Not hearing any.
If that's the case, I would like to tell Brad, thank you for being here and giving up part of your evening. And we appreciate the work you and the entire team at Polly Rogers do.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. You as well. You guys are great. Great job this year.
We can't.
Oh, can you hear me?
April 22nd, 23rd.
Can you hear me now?
Did you want to do that right now, Lisa? Okay.
I just was notified that Velma is online, and so maybe we can go back to that agenda item as Barbie is setting up. Thank you.
Hello, Velma. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you guys this evening?
Are these speakers down here?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there she
I
is.
can hear her just barely. It sounds like maybe the speakers are just turned down.
No, she's gonna let it on here. This is more, I just can't see.
Can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you, Velma. I'm sorry.
I'm unmuted, so
Yeah, I can hear you, Velma, but I don't think they can.
gotcha.
There we go.
It's coming in better now.
Can you hear me now? I was gonna say, do you need me to come out and come back in?
Sure, come through out of the
I think we've got a little bit of
I
volume
think we
here.
can hear you a little bit if we're all quiet.
If we're all quiet. Now, if you're in a classroom saying if we're all quiet, that's funny. Because that happens sometimes, not all the time. So, sorry it took me so long. I lost my link someplace, so I went to January's link, and guess what? It works. So that was a good thing. We had Clifford the dog come by today, deliver books, and got to have a story read and things like that. That was kind of cool. We had kids really excited that they got books. I really like it when kids get that excited about something.
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
A little better.
A little better? I was just commenting on the fact that we had Scholastic and Clifford come by at school today. The kids got books and they were really excited that they got new books. But they always love new books. Are we there?
I think if we just leave it like that, I think we could all hear it. Okay.
Okay.
Can you say the last 5 minutes one more time?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Just go ahead and keep going, Velma.
Okay. I don't know what you heard.
We heard that kids were getting books today, and it was a good thing with the kids. They were enjoying it.
They are. They've heard talk that the mask mandate might go away. They're pretty excited about that too. I don't know where we're at with that, but we're just plugging along, trying to get, trying to stay the course. Very excited to have Friday off. Thank you guys very much. I want you to know, for my part, I am taking a personal day on Thursday, and Wednesday evening I fly out to Tennessee to see my sister.
Cool.
Which wouldn't have been able to do that without that extra day on Friday. It's going to be a nice break because I'm going by myself and staying a few days with my sister. It should be fun.
Mhm.
So very much appreciated. I know it's very much appreciated by many people. I've heard positive things about it. trying to think if there's any other well, there's lots of positive things. We're just trying to stay the course. It's been a long, tedious year. And I think you can see the wear and tear on people throughout the district. Kids are doing crazy things right now. I'm ready for that to stop. But for the most part, I think it's going well.
All right. I hope everybody is able to utilize this Friday as a chance to rest and recuperate. I know it's something that we all need. And you know, you guys that are on the front lines dealing with these kids on a daily basis and everything that goes along with that really need to take that time and get rested up. So again, I appreciate the chance that we have to be able to do that for all of you. It's going to be a good thing. All right, Lisa, I'll let you continue on then.
Thank you, Velma. Appreciate you getting on and sharing that, and have a great trip. Again, I hope everyone does take advantage of the wellness time and recuperate, because we have more to go and more to give to kids. We now have two things that kind of tie together. We'll start with Barbie around the school district and the school state report cards. The data has come in. We like to review that and share that with the board. One of the board's responsibilities, as you know, is to ensure the excellent education of our students, and that is to check our goals and our metrics of how we're improving. And so I not only have Barbie here to go over the district report card and some individual schools, but then specifically to the report card of the high school, we'll have Ralph Brown here to talk about those things that you see on the report card that are specifically to the high school, which is the 9th grade success, which we keep close track of, and then our graduation rate. So Barbie, please share with us.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm so pleased to give you an update about our Oregon State Report Card. So the Oregon State Report Card is an annual publication. It's required by law, which reports on the state of public schools and their progress towards meeting educational goals. In addition, this report provides a tool that makes educational data accessible to researchers, media, students, and parents, and creates a clear, complete, and factual picture of the state of education in Oregon. So Colleen, if you could move to slide 3, there we go. This is the Sweet Home School District Report Card. As you can see, in the 2021 school year, we had 2,170 students enrolled. It's really hard to zoom in on this slide, but you'll see that there's orange and green and brown writing, and I will read that. I blew it up a little bit in the next couple slides. But you can see that there is on track to graduate 9th grade data. 68% of Sweet Home School District's 9th graders were on track to graduate, compared to the state 74%. And then our on-time graduation was 88%, and that was compared to the state of 83%. So we were a little above that. Next is the Sweet Home High School, and I'm not going to steal Ralph's thunder, so I'll let him talk with you about that in just a moment. But I wanted to show you what that special note is stating, and it's the next slide, Colleen. Thank you. So the special note states, the at-a-glance school and district profiles tell a story about Oregon schools and districts. The story is harder to tell this year. That would be the 2020 and 21 school year. The COVID-19 pandemic significantly impacted our schools and the data that we collect. As a result, statewide assessment and attendance data cannot be compared to prior years, and it is not shown here. So for the next slide, it shows our junior high and all of our elementary schools, Foster, Hawthorne, Holly, and Oak Heights. We simply did not have enough data for the state to give us a report. So that's unfortunate that we didn't have an assessment tool that we could use locally in our schools that would show where our kids are at. And that leads me to the next slide, which is our Sweet Home School District assessment tool, for the 2022-23 school year. It's brought to us by Curriculum Associates, iReady, and I wanted to share a little bit about this amazing tool. So iReady is a comprehensive assessment and instruction program, and it empowers our educators with the resources that they need to help all students succeed. It's aligned with our Oregon State standards. It has online lessons that provide tailored instruction and practice for each student to accelerate growth. It will support teachers with resources for remediation and reteaching at individualized small groups and whole class level of instruction. It's research-based and it's proven to work. And the professional development for all of our teachers is included. And I am extremely excited about bringing this to our Sweet Home School District for the 2022-23 school year. I'm going to pause and let Ralph talk to you a little bit about the high school, and then I'll come back and share about our I Love Reading Day, which took place today. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Barbie, Superintendent Riggs, and school board. And Colleen, I'm not sure on the, oh, perfect, she's up there. Wow, she is quick. I just have it in front of me here, we go from class 2017 to the class of 2021. I want to thank Kristen. Puts together, we work together very closely with our executive cabinet, and Kristen Adams is one of my superstars, and she put together the slide deck for me. What we didn't do is go down to the class of 2016. At that year as well, we were at 71%. We had 3 years in a row, 16, 17, 18, about 71%. We started kicking in as a team, trying to do some concerted effort, paying attention to the data, looking at the students, the help we could give them to move toward graduation. And we had good gains, class of 2019 up to 85. Class of 2020, that was a weird COVID year where they cut the school year off in the spring for our seniors. And then last year, the class of 2021, we had a dip, and the state had a dip as well. But the concern that we have is that many of our students, when we're doing the online, really struggled on the online learning when the students were not in school. Next slide, please. As Jason was talking about, one of the groups that we look at, the subgroups, economically disadvantaged. And the trends that we had, we've been having at Sweet Home High School, were gradually starting lower with that group at class of 2017, and then gradually increasing. Even last year with the class of 2021, we were above the state average, which doesn't mean a lot to us because we still have students that we're not reaching. We want to reach all of our students, but we had an upward trend, and that's why we want to try to continue. The class of 2020, again, had that odd year where the seniors were done in the spring. The next slide, and this is one that we're particularly proud of the gains that we've made in Sweet Home, because as Jason was saying again, there are kids that are most impacted. Kids living in poverty, kids, the homeless kids. These were kids at the state average. It doesn't change much. It's in the 50s. They got up to the 60s in 2020. We had great gains, the class of 2019, class of 2020. We dropped off last year, and it wasn't entirely surprising because a lot of the students that were fighting all the COVID things with all of the stuff that was going on with not being in school, the students that were navigating homelessness struggled at a high level as well. We were still above the state average, but that is one that took a dip for us. And that's a group that I think a couple of years ago, we were at about 10%. We were one of the highest in the state. I mean, as far as having the number of students struggling with homelessness. So that's a target group for us. The next slide, students with disabilities as well. Students that have some things going against them. Again, the upward trend that we were working. Last year, the class of 2021, we had to dip down from our 79% down to 74. But we'd been making the steady increases before we hit into some of the pandemic, and not losing a great amount of our traction, but we still know that the battle is going to be difficult coming up. The next one, and this is just a group we put in because a lot of our kids here at Sweet Home, they really thrive in our career and technical education programs. And so their numbers are really high. Like I said, looking at class of 2020, 93%. And the participants are a kid that takes at least one CTE class. Last year, we had some loss on there, and I'm not sure other than our kids with having the time, we had about 250 kids at the high school last year who were online, and we still had CTE classes. But if you can imagine doing Dustin Wood's class online, even though he did a great job and we had videos, it was tough. So I expect that when we have kids fully in building as we do now, for that to increase. The next slide, this is the one that gives me, whoops, which one are you on there? Colleen, sorry. Okay, sorry. Ninth grade, we should have one more slide. There we go. I am nothing but a realist. This is the thing that's got me the most worry right now. On this slide, so I'll explain to you, down to class of 2017, we had a 71% graduation rate. You go back to the class of the freshmen of 13-14, those ninth graders were at 69% on track for graduation. The graduation rate 4 years later was 71%. You go to the class of 2018, where 71% graduation rate, the ninth grade on track for the 14-15 school year was 79%. The class of 2019, 85% graduation rate. The 15-16, when those seniors were ninth graders, 84% on track. We keep going up, and you can see we've made better gains in class 2020, 2021. When they were ninth graders in 16-17, 78%. When they were ninth graders in 17-18, 77%. So we've made gains. Class of 2022 coming up, we don't have the graduation rate yet, but the 18-19, when they were ninth graders, they were on an 88% ninth grade on track. Ninth grade on track is a really great indicator that these kids are going to be successful down the road. Class of 2023, that's this year's juniors, in 1920, class of 19 or year of 1920, when they were ninth graders, they were an 84%. This last year's kids, in 2021, 68% of our ninth graders were on track for graduation. The COVID stuff with having the kids distance learning impacted our ninth graders more than maybe any of our other groups. That is an area that we are very concerned about, and that we're hitting hard to try to make some gains. So the next slide. This year at the high school, we started our own alternative education program. It's on campus. We took our own staff. We're working with students. And so with this slide, the class of 2022, it shows that with our alt ed students from the class of 2022, we had 24 students. From the credit recovery students, and these are students that are using our Odysseyware to recover credits, there were 18 in that senior class. So a total of 42 kids in that senior class. First semester, they recaptured 125 credits. And so they made some great gains on recovering credits that they had lost previously that they needed to try to get ahead on. The class of 2023, this year's juniors, there were 29 students in that group, 7 in alt ed, 22 doing the credit recovery. They earned 27 credits. The students who were doing the online, it's like in addition to their regular classes that they're doing. And we look at the class of 2024, the sophomore group, and that group, there were 26 kids involved, and they earned 61.5 credits. So our alt ed efforts, alternative education efforts, and our looking at our Odysseyware, increased Odysseyware, we feel we're having some impact. Kristen feels that that's going to help, especially the seniors. Seniors hit it hard to try to recover to get ready for on track. So we're working hard to try to regain, but like I said, I'm always pragmatic, and that last year's 68% of ninth grade worries me greatly. So we got a lot of work to do. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And Jason,
Mr. Brown?
congratulations to that Michigan team.
I think if I could paraphrase, and then Barbie's going to come back and talk about some exciting news, is that the state is concerned about the rebounding from COVID, as you know, and the pandemic. And so when we see these reports from ninth grade to the graduation and our concerns of what the ninth graders experienced last year and then our predictions, because really ninth grade on track is a prediction of their success. We're seeing that the state is asking districts to go back and retarget. Everyone was trying to make gains and then COVID came. So trying to go back and to get to the point of where we were prior. And so we're going to have to realign those goals to do just that. We can't expect just to bounce back. We have recovery to do, rebounding and repair. And at the same time, it's sort of the state and across the nation, they've said, let's go back to where we were and then add. So you'll see some changes in our metrics across the state. One more. I keep
Okay.
looking at this and I always think it's heart, but it's Clifford.
It's
Tell us
Clifford.
more, Barbie.
I am thrilled to talk with you tonight about our first annual Sweet Home School District I Love Reading Day on Valentine's Day. So fitting. So we partnered with Scholastic. And next slide, please, Colleen. You can see that we went to every elementary school and our junior high today, and we celebrated the love of literacy. I Love Reading Day. So here you have some first grade students that are out front. We put a sign at every building. We made a big deal out of reading. The kids were able to zoom in with a Scholastic representative who did a literacy activity with them, a heart map activity. You'll see the next slide, please, Colleen. There is our friend Vincent from Scholastic. He joined the children in the classroom. He shared with them his favorites and for his heart map, and each child was able to write down the things that they treasured and valued the most. And then Vincent did a read aloud with our students, and every student in our district, kinder through 8, received 5 new books. So here's an example of the first grade packet. It has Mary Pope Osborne, Magic Treehouse, one of my favorites in first grade. Then we have just a variety of books. This was the middle school, the junior high kids. They were thrilled. Unfortunately, the truck was a little bit behind. It got stuck in the snow. So the books arrived today at 11:30. So we were able to get the books up to the junior high and hand deliver those to the kids, and they were thrilled. We were in an English class today, and we had our friends from Scholastic zoom in and share with the kids their love of literacy, and the kids were able to interact with the Scholastic people as well. And then we were happy to give every child their book today. So lots of happy faces. You would have thought we gave them a bag of gold. They just treated it so nice and put it in their backpack. It was really, really fun to see. That was junior high. So I can't wait to give the books to the kids tomorrow at the elementary schools. We'll be out and about delivering those tomorrow. They're in our storeroom right now. But what a fun day. We'll go ahead and continue to the next slide. You can see the activity, the heart map. Here's an example of an elementary student, and then the young man in the blue sweatshirt. He filled up his heart like you wouldn't believe. And this was junior high students, all the things they loved, their family, their pets, their school, their teachers, reading, dirt bikes. We had all kinds of loves. And so it was really exciting. So they did a little bit of writing as well as talk about the love of reading. And my last slide is just to thank you all for supporting our kids with literacy. I think it was a win today, and I just want to thank you for taking part in that. You bet. Are there any questions? I always forget to ask that. Okay.
Thanks, Barbie.
Thank you.
Next report is Thad Hollabin. I believe he is online and somewhere he will be presenting, but this is one of those yearly required pieces, a little different than I Love Reading, but we do want to report to the public and also to our board about the restraint and seclusion, not only our training in that, but also what our district had experienced this past year. So Thad?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Am I able to be heard? I'm yelling into the mic. Can you hear me? I know the online people can hear because I can hear other online people. So this is an annual report that we need to do, of course, with school being not really all the way in person for much of the year. Our total incidents of restraints were down quite a bit. They had been hovering around 12 or 13 for the past, or the years past. Last year, we had one. It's a required report that we do, submitted every July, and then we post it after we present it to the board. Thanks for scrolling down there. So tomorrow, we'll just put it up on the website and it'll be available, and the school's principals can get all the copies and everything. Or it was August 31st this year, my bad, because it was delayed because of everything else. Are there any questions on that? Okay, that sounds good. I think I'm up next too. I don't know if you've heard in the news or not. I imagine you have that. Gosh, when was that? February 7th, OHA came out and said that they're going to lift mask mandates, the requirement at least, by March 31st. I don't know how much you've read into this, but essentially, yes, we have the option of going to that where we don't have masks at schools. What the trade-off on that one would be is potentially if we have to move back to 6 feet apart in the classroom, and if someone who's unvaccinated is exposed, then we start running into more quarantine situations. I'm trying to summarize this because it's, everyone here can read through a document, and it's really a little bit tedious, but that's the gist of it. And also, as you have read this, they do go through here and, strongly recommend that we keep the masks in place. But if we want to remove them, scroll just a little bit more there, Colleen, thank you. Yeah, right in there. So that's the thing, to mitigate us deciding to have masks be gone. There are some little things. I wish I had my I'm scrolling on my own screen here, but it's not working. Okay, so there are parts in here where staff could wear masks, and in the classroom, anyone can, if they choose to, even if the mandates went away, anyone could just voluntarily wear one. And, oh yeah, test to stay goes away. I should probably look at my notes here, because that sounded like a something that was interesting too. Without masks, then there's no test to stay. And then we had a recent update, it wasn't that long ago, where they said anyone who's masked in class doesn't count as an exposure. Of course, if the students aren't wearing masks, then that does count as an exposure, which would result in a potential quarantine situation. If anyone has any questions on this, I can try to answer them. This is the information as I have it and that everyone else has it.
Dad, this is Sarah Hoffman. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the difference for everyone listening, what the quarantine differences would be between now and then if we chose to go maskless?
So on this a little bit here, they have stated that they are going to roll some things out over the next few weeks. So personally, I wouldn't hang my hat on a lot of the things in here, but it does say the general quarantine guidance on day 6. So they would be out, it looks like, for 5 days. And on day 6, their quarantine would include the need to wear well-fitted masks 6th through the 10th day of their quarantine. But again, this is hard to kind of say here. I do expect there to be changes on this again, because they change at least every 2 weeks. So this drops, we scramble a little bit to try to figure out what to do. The next bit of information will come out. We'll scramble and try to get it in place. The biggest thing I think right now is making sure that we can help mitigate some of the quarantining by distancing. Because if they miss 5 days, or 5 days obviously is a whole week of school out. So if they're distanced in class and they don't come in contact with someone who's exposed for 15 minutes, then that doesn't count as an exposure too. So that can help mitigate some of the quarantining as well. And I imagine by March, we will hear something different.
Yeah, I'm not sure it can get much worse because my students, I have 3, they've quarantined 2 weeks out of the last 30 days. So, and that's with masks. So I'm not really sure it could get any worse.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if they're going to take into account if someone's, been exposed and how long, if there's a window of time afterwards where they are considered, inoculated versus the, the updated vaccine requirements where everyone had to have a booster to be considered up to date too. So there's lots to go through on this. I expect, like I said, I expect more rollout, as they say in here, in the next few weeks.
I would additionally on the test to stay, sorry, I'm just chiming in. I'm sorry if I'm jumping in front of someone else. On the test to stay, it does say diagnostic testing will remain even if we choose to go maskless. So just a heads up.
Yeah.
For anyone that hadn't read that.
And I think that maybe the good news on all this is they're expecting, as these viruses, I guess, tend to do, is the variants over time, even though Omicron kind of snuck its way around vaccinated folks a little bit, that the variants eventually weaken and this becomes like an endemic, and we end up living with it like the flu or common cold. Even, and the flu, of course, does contribute to people dying each year too. So that's where we're at. Those are good questions, Sarah. Thank you. And thanks for clarifying that too.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so at the next board meeting, when we update, we will have something slightly different potentially during this segment of the program. So thank you very much for bearing with us on this.
Thank you, Thad. And that's why we have this update every week, because when we meet monthly here, we've already had 4 changes, and that is the issue. A couple of things to consider. I think it is good that we have until March 31st to put a plan in place. Most superintendents and districts are working. Yes, there's some scramble when things immediately change, but this isn't an immediate change. This is giving us time to pre-plan, and it will give us time to bring this and questions out to the community. We like to use thought exchange, and so you'll see that coming forward, where it's not a matter of do you want to mask or not mask. It's sort of like once they come up with all of the things of what districts are going to require to do to make the individual and local choice of that. Is it going to be 6 feet? If it is, then our principals are going to be busily working on how they can even manage 6 feet again. And can we do that within a normal school day and having the number of kids? Those are those questions that have to be resolved. If it then changes, the other thing is, like Sarah was saying, how many days of out of the month and how many students will have to quarantine given the parameters that were required under our local health authority. And if that's the case, then we need to be pre-planning like we did in the past for short-term distance learning, so our teachers have things in place for students at quarantine. Our number one job in our district has been your number one wish, is to keep our schools open, to allow students having the access to work in a full-time in-distance or in-person, not distance learning. And we want to maintain that. along with these new guidelines. So we will be checking on that and giving teachers plenty of time and also our administrators plenty of time to ensure that we follow these. Even though it is a local decision, there may be, as you know, many mandates around that that we will have to qualify and ensure that we do. So we appreciate the update, Thad, and we also know that by the end of the week, we'll get a little more of those details. Any questions for Thad or myself on that?
Next month's meeting, we're gonna have probably a better piece of paper in front of us that kind of gives us what that plan is gonna be for starting on March 31.
Yeah, and I think also
it's easy to read.
I would hope so. And I know hope's not a strategy, but they have to have us something, give us something on that. And also it's something, you know, for the board to consider on which direction we want to go on this as well. Do we want to, you know, I mean, we could, and I'm not suggesting any sort of ideas here. We could stay with the masks, or we could have them off and mitigate.
Again, I think it's one of those things of our community needs to weigh in. Our board certainly wants to hear from them. So I think a thought exchange is very important to give those parameters and get the community's feedback on that, because it is going to be up to our parents and those that are affected by a change. So that's going to be important. When we get that information, then that will come out and it will help us in our planning for things. Right now, that is the only information we've received from the state, Mike. And so I think it's important for us to get that feedback and then put that plan of what can be managed. But given the parameters of 6 feet distancing, the reason why, pardon? Well, they did when we had masks. And so when this changes, if those parameters go back into effect, then we need to consider what our schools will be up against. Yeah.
So right now it's not saying if you decide to go maskless, you need to do 6 feet. It's suggesting that you may want to do that, but it's not actually saying that in what they've rolled out so far. So it would be interesting to see what they roll out in the next couple of weeks so that we can have further discussion. Because if we're listening to our community up to this point, they're saying that they want their students maskless. Just for things like we want to know what, if anyone's researched how mask is affecting early learners, like their phonics and their social skills. So those things are really important to talk about before we make any sort of decision.
And I would agree with that too. And the may go to 6 feet too. That comes down to the local health authority too, the county one, and when they decide or have guidance on quarantining as well. So our nurse, you know, Lisa Murphy, works very closely with them, and that seems to be going. I mean, she's following all the guidance right now, and it seems to be going, you know, as planned, I guess. Alrighty.
Thank you, Thad. Last, we have 9, all students belong, and Colleen Henry, I think she's online. I saw her earlier. And then also Ross Davis from our local ESD is joining us on Zoom as well.
Thank you, Superintendent Riggs. I hope everyone can hear me. I, like Director Hull, I'm going to use my loud inside voice. First, let me start by apologizing for the lateness of this presentation. This information was rolled out by the state of Oregon in January 2021. And when I looked back on our calendar and looked back at our board minutes from that month, we were focused on bringing kids out of distance learning and back to in-person. And so that was the 100% focus of our district at that time. And so this report kind of is late in getting to you. So I apologize that you're now getting this information, this breakdown of the all students belong policy. So a quick recap to give you some background. This is from House Bill 2697. Again, that went into effect by our state legislature in January 2021. And there are three bullet points of the law. The first one is that it helps ensure that students, employees, and visitors can learn, work, and participate in school activities occurring on and off school grounds that are free from discrimination, harassment, and intimidation. The second bullet point is that it prohibits the use or display of the noose, symbol of neo-Nazi ideology, and the battle flag of the Confederacy in any program or school-sponsored activity except where used in teaching curriculum that is aligned to the Oregon state standards. This applies to both in-person and distance learning environments. And the third bullet point of the law requires school districts, public charter schools, ESDs, and School for the Deaf to adopt a policy to address bias incidents and prohibit hate symbols that meet certain requirements. So when we look to ODE, their expectations around safe and inclusive schools encompass all students are entitled to a high-quality educational experience, free from discrimination or harassment based on perceived race, color, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or national origin. All students benefit from a safe environment where they are free to receive their education without fear of hatred, racism, or violence. All staff and leaders are entitled to work in an environment that is free from discrimination or harassment, and visitors are entitled to participate in our school environment without fear for their safety. Every Student Belongs is an important step in creating safe and inclusive school climates where all students and staff feel like they belong in their schools. So here are the guiding values of the Every Student Belongs rule. Every student must feel like they belong. All are entitled to discrimination and harassment-free schools. Racist symbols cause harm to all and prevent students from being able to access their education. We are all responsible for keeping schools safe. That means adopting and implementing policies that promote welcoming schools, full equity and inclusion, and standing up against racism. It is important to address racism as a systemic problem. And finally, communication and education are key non-punitive responses. One of our special guests tonight, Ross Davis from the Lynn Benton Lincoln ESD, is here to provide some more information on what non-punitive responses can look like around restorative practices. So how will ODE ensure accountability? The first is that it is providing through OSBA policy recommendations, and that was required of every school board January 1st, 2021. It also provides guidance and implementation tools that we have access to, and it also is requiring that school districts report out on their compliance to this new law through our Division 22 reports. So how will we as a district implement these rules? We have already adopted policies in accordance to House Bill 2697. That policy, ACB and ACB-AR, were adopted by the school board January 11th, 2021. And tonight on our board agenda is the first read of a recommended revision. They've changed a number of things in the law when it moved from a temporary rule to a permanent rule. One of that is the names. The name originally was All Students Belong. There we go. It is now Every Student Belongs. And we're going to be providing training for our administrators on restorative practices and all staff. Are there any questions that I can try to answer for you? Okay. All right, I'm going to pin Ross then, because I know he's on here.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you okay, Ross. Let's check with the boardroom.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent.
great.
Thank you. Okay. And you can go to the first slide there. I'll just first of all introduce myself while you're looking at this first slide. So my name is Ross Davis, and I work with the Strategic Partnerships Program for the Lynn Benton Lincoln Education Service District. And our goal is to help districts implement evidence-based practices that accomplish the goals listed in the Student Success Act, particularly to help school districts implement their student investment account plans. And one of the things that I do is I build partnerships with organizations to help accomplish that work. And a lot of these slides that you'll see tonight come directly from one of our community partners, the Center for Dialogue and Resolution, who, among other things, really focus on helping school districts and businesses and organizations implement restorative practices. And so I'm here to talk a little bit about what restorative practices are. You see here, there are four main tenets to restorative philosophy. And a lot of people really focus on that very last one, the whole idea of multi-tiered practices that by nature fall on a continuum. And so we think about circles, we think about restorative conversations, but those things are really just there so that those first three tenets can be enacted and be focused on. And so really the priority of restorative philosophy is to accomplish a lot of the things that we have talked about earlier in this meeting. And so that is building, maintaining, and repairing relationships within a community. It is also very, very heavy on accountability, and it is it often takes a little bit of time to wrap your mind around what exactly that means. And so I'll talk briefly about that tonight. And again, just as in the every student belongs, every member of the community is vital to the whole. And so really recognizing the fact that every student does belong. As we go through this, it's probably, you can go to the next slide. As we go through this, if you have any questions, it's a little difficult for me to hear you, but whoever had the microphone in front of them, if you could just let me know, I'd be happy to pause and answer any questions, or you're free to wait until the end and kind of ask them. So what I have here is I want to differentiate what we're mostly familiar with as a rule compliance model, here listed as an authoritarian model, which focuses on rule compliance, and a restorative model. And so what are the differences there? And I think one of the easiest ways to really differentiate between these two models is to look at the questions that we concern ourselves with. And so in the traditional authoritarian model that focuses on rule compliance, when an incident occurs, we want to know three things. We want to know what rule was broken, who broke the rule, and what punishment or what is the appropriate consequence that that person should receive. And the restorative model, the questions that we concern ourselves with are really to explore the impact that the incident had. And so it's best to think of it as it's a learning model. And so we want to know what happened, which covers a lot of those questions that I just mentioned, but also who was impacted by that. And also what needs to happen to make things right. And so it's not just concerned about what consequence occurs, but also how to atone for the harm that was caused to the people or the person or people that were involved in the incident. What we do know about a rule compliance model is that there's actually very little evidence to support that it changes behaviors. But that is not to say that there is not a lot of evidence for that model. But unfortunately, the evidence that we have for that model is that that model actually results in lower academic performance over time in many, many cases. We also know that it actually negatively impacts a student's trajectory for graduation in some cases. And we also know that in some cases that a rule compliance model can cause permanent harm to the relationships with the adults in the school, which is an important factor for graduation and success and satisfaction. And in direct opposition to our goals, we also know that sometimes a rule compliance model can often lead to increases in the very behavior that we're hoping to minimize or change. And so on the other hand, restorative models, at this time, there's still conflicting evidence for the efficacy of restorative practices in achieving the goal of changing behavior. But what we do know is that where it is implemented well, that the evidence is strong, that it is an effective model for changing behavior. So we currently designate this as a promising practice, and so I think that's important to understand. Let's go to the next slide. So just to kind of help you see from a social reality the difference between the two. So the rule compliance model is really focused on rules. You designate students as rule followers and rule breakers, or we may use other words such as the good kids or the high flyers, and maintaining order is really a priority in that model. And so if we switch to the key social reality for a restorative model, rules exist within a restorative model, but the focus is community and relationships. And so instead of violations of rules, we focus on violations of relationships and understanding how our actions impact other people. And so at our best in a restorative model, we take accountability for those impacts and we work to repair the harm that was caused. And in this one, now, obviously, we still want to maintain order, and that is still an importance, but what is the priority is people's needs. And so making sure that we're meeting people's needs. All right, let's go to the next one. So this is one that I'm not really going to talk much about. I just wanted to present it so that you have the two models there, and you can kind of do a little bit of reflection on your own, just between the differences and the priorities of each. It's just basically a summary of what I just went through. All right, let's go to the next one. So this is really interesting as well. I wanted to come here tonight, not just to present what restorative practices are, but I also wanted to present to you the case that there's pretty compelling evidence that we really need to shift our practices to be more restorative. And so one of the articles I want to present for your consideration is Maslow's hierarchy. It's for 70 years, it has been the absolute standard of what students need in order to learn. And if you think about it for just a second, I put these, I depicted them here in a stairway. What you'll probably recognize or see more often is it represented in a pyramid. But Maslow himself never actually represented it in a pyramid. He preferred to think of it as a ladder. And I just think a stairway is kind of visually a little easier to understand. And so if you look at this stairway, those top two stairs are what we really try to focus on in schools. We really are working to help our students achieve and to self-actualize, meaning to be the best person that they can be. And if you look at those first two stairs, I think Sweet Home, as much as any other district in the state, is well aware of the difficulties that students or that it presents a student if they don't have physiological needs met, such as hunger or safety. And so making sure that they are physically safe and emotionally safe, or that they have housing. And so we're well aware of how those first two stairs impact a student's ability to reach those last two. But what we have not given enough attention to is that third stair and this idea of belonging and the importance that that plays in a student's ability to achieve at high levels and to be the best person they can be. And so instead of this, what we get is this idea of an indignant hierarchy. So let's go to the next slide and see what that looks like. And so essentially, historically, what we've done in schools, especially over the last 20 years, is we flipped that hierarchy. And so what we've done is we've put achievement before belonging. In other words, what we've done is we've unintentionally created environments where in order to belong, you have to meet our expectations, whether it's for behavior or for academics. And I can't tell you how incredibly damaging that is, and the impact that that has had on so many of our students. And so I brought a slide with you, a couple slides actually, to show you the unintentional damage that flipping this hierarchy has done. And so let's go to the next slide. So this comes from John Hattie's research, and if you're not familiar with Hattie, he's the one that created this visual learning graphic that is really great for educators to see what's effective according to research and what isn't. And one of the least not just least impactful, but negatively impactful things that we could do to students is to label them. And this is this large category. And so I want to explain it a little bit here because this is a catch-all. So labeling, what we could mean by that is tracking students. And this was something that was really, really popular at some time ago, where you had kind of an introductory course or a remedial course of some sort for students that were striving to achieve. And what we found was that instead of those courses helping as intended, they actually had a negative impact of leading to 153% loss of a year's learning in time spent in those courses. And this category can also refer to labeling students without using that student first language. And so the stigmatizing impact of labeling a student. For example, I guess I should provide an example here. Calling a student a red zone student or something like that is actually damaging to that student. And so what this specifically refers to in this instance is this idea of a fixed mindset. And so the idea that a student is either good or bad or a rule follower or rule breaker, these labels, I hope, are rarely expressed in such stark terms, but they are used in our schools. But it's the mindset itself that's damaging here. And so restorative practices looks at these students and they separate the deeds from the actual doer, the person who's doing the incident. And we focus on the learning. Okay, so one more slide here. Oh, two more slides. All right, so this one I wanted to spend just a moment on as well. And so when we look at this comes from Oregon-wide data, and it was taken at the end of students' 9th grade year, meaning that we had a good indication of whether they were on track using the indicators or not. And when we looked at whether or not those students had just 2 disciplinary incidents that 9th grade year, 2 or more, doubled their chance that they would drop out of school. We also know that ineffective discipline is also one of the major drivers for chronic absenteeism. And so we often see those two circles overlapping. And when that happens, those students have 5 times greater chance of dropping out. And we also know that when students are not attending regularly, that their chances of not being on track are also increase. And so when you look at all of those circles and how they interplay, you see that exponentially when we run into these factors, that students stand much greater chance of dropping out, not finishing within 4 or 5 years. And so in order to prevent the disengagement that occurs, what we need to do is focus on relationships and refocus our priorities to build those relationships, community, and the needs of those in our school. And that is what a restorative model does. So let's look at the last slide. And this is my favorite slide, because when we think about restorative practices, that name gets associated with large school districts like Portland or San Francisco or Oakland. I think were some of the large districts that are pretty closely associated with that. But there are tons of districts across the country that are working on implementation of restorative practices. And in Southern Oregon, we have the benefit of having data from the pilot projects that Resolve, the sister organization of the Center for Dialogue and Resolution, our community partner, has done. And so if you look, the schools represented here are pretty similar to in size and in demographic and in geography as Sweet Home High School. And so you have Rogue River Junior Senior High School, you have Phoenix High School here, Central Medford High. And so when you look at these, you see that graduation rates were positively impacted, attendance rates were positively impacted, exclusionary and punitive discipline plummeted, bullying plummeted, referrals for fighting plummeted. And so the pilot project data here is really quite impressive. And one of the things that I wanted to do so that you had this at your leisure is there's a link to the data in this as well, so that you can look at that yourself. And so that is it. That is a really brief introduction to restorative practices and why it's something that schools across the country are considering or implementing. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about either something I said or something I didn't say. Oh, it's interesting seeing myself on the screen. That was a lot of information. If you think of a question later, I'm happy to answer. Like I said, I work at LBL ESD, and so I'm around and available.
Thank you, Ross. And thank you again. Ross will be working with the center with us in 2 days with our administrators. This is also practice that has been being worked on with the Oregon Athletic Association, and important to bring up at the time of the updates to All Students Belong because of that toolkit. This is one of the tools that is in the toolkit that they roll out, and we just are lucky enough to have some experts at our local ESD. So we'll be getting, this was the overview, we'll be getting the training, the administrators will be getting trained on Wednesday and going through the practice to just look at our practices, look at our number of discipline, behavior, see where kids are feeling. We have a survey, there's a healthy survey that comes out nearly every year or every year that we can participate in Oregon about how students feel. As Ross talked about belonging, that's a very important trait. We want not only to feel part of a community, but to feel part of that school community. And this is one way to really put some skills into place to have that happen. So thank you.
All right, any questions? All right, thanks, Lisa. We'll move on next to the consent agenda. So we have approved the minutes from the January 10, 2022 school board meeting. Accept the resignation from Michael Rolfe, special education teacher at Hawthorne Elementary, effective June 17, 2022. Accept the resignation from Dave Toll, science teacher at Sweet Home High School, effective January 31st, 2022. And approve the hire of Tamara White, temporary special ed teacher at Holly Elementary and the charter school, effective February 9th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, motion passes. So information and discussion, budget update, ESSER report, and state revenue forecast. Kevin.
Okay, thanks, Jason. This is item 8A in the board packet. Starting with the budget update, we are now, we've completed 7 months of our fiscal year, and year-to-date spending is just over $700,000 higher than at the same time period last year. We do expect to stay within our total adopted budget for spending this year. The primary reasons for the increase over last year would be higher salaries and benefit expenses, higher supplies and material expenses, that includes bus fuel, and also higher property insurance premiums. Moving on to federal ESSER spending, the next page in the board packet. We have spent all of the ESSER 1 allocation. We have now either spent or committed over half of our ESSER 2 allocation, and we are beginning to spend our ESSER 3 allocation as well. And so this report shows you those areas that we're spending those funds on. And then moving to the last item, the state revenue forecast update. The state revenue forecast came out last week. We have an update from Morgan Allen, who is with the Coalition of Oregon School Administrators. And really the key takeaway there, like Morgan says, it's safe to say that Oregon's budget is currently in the best financial position since the passage of Measure 5 in 1990. And so that's the encouraging news. I would say, though, that Oregon State economist, he mentioned that oftentimes when you're in a period with inflation like we're in right now, that can end with a crash landing to the economy. So there's that concern out there, but when you just look at the numbers right now, they are very positive.
All right, any questions for Kevin? Okay, next we have a facility report. Josh Starwood.
How about Josh and I communicated earlier today, and I'll cover this one for him. Josh just wanted to mention tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the junior high school library, we have our first long-range facility planning meeting. It would be great to have some board involvement too, if any of you are interested. So if so, this is an invitation to attend. The other item, Josh said that next month when he's back, he's going to have another video for us updating on all the projects that our facility team is working on. And That's normally one of the highlights of the board meetings, so I'm looking forward to it.
What time was that again?
Tomorrow, 6 p.m. at the junior high school library. Yeah, and I think we're good as long as we don't have a quorum. I think we're good.
Well, I would just say if you plan on going or you want to go, just give Lisa a message or something like that, and she'll keep track of that. If we end up out of hand there, she'll let us know. So, sound good? All right. All right. Next, we have board policies. This is a first reading, so it's just informational tonight. There's a list of them there. And then we have the policy update book here. It has both the policies with the changes as well as the justification for those changes from OSBA in the front. So encourage everybody to go through those over the next month, and we'll have our second reading next month's meeting. So we have no action items tonight. Do we have any board comments?
Very good chance of getting an update on the 2 incidents the last month or so, the assault and the wrestling incident. There a chance of getting updates on both of those.
There are current investigations. One is pending, still with criminal investigations. So that's not a finalized, something that we can comment on at this time publicly. And then and same with the other. So the process of an investigation is that we start with the initial process. It moves on. Thad Holub is overseeing investigations, and then all of these investigations go to our attorneys, especially when they have started in a criminal situation, whether it's deemed criminal or not. So those moved on to Nancy Hungerford. We've gotten some things back, not all, and then they will move to, in the case of students that are connected to the final reports and then possible hearings.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, then we're going to do the executive session here at the end. So no late items. Future agenda items. Next board officers meeting is March 7th, 2022 at 3:30 in the superintendent's office. Next board meeting is March 9th. That isn't a holiday. Nobody's going to want to spend the night with their wife, are they? Okay. Oh, that's a work session, correct? Yeah. So that's where we'll be going through the OSBA's new superintendent evaluation process and getting some training on that. Next board meeting is March 14th. That's the one that, that'll be here in the district office boardroom at 6:30 p.m. No, the 17th is St. Patrick's Day. We're safe there. That'd be kind of a fun meeting if it was, though. All right. Unless anybody has anything else, we will adjourn this meeting and go into executive session under ORS 192-6602D to discuss classified bargaining, and ORS 192-6602I to discuss the superintendent's evaluation. So we'll do that in about 5 minutes. So we're adjourned.
Thank you for helping me with the slide.
Okay, so